Yeah, so if you're just tuning in and you haven't heard the sort of top story yet, worth mentioning to you that President Trump has announced a 10% tax on all UAE goods imported to the United States. He says that the UAE charges the US a similar amount, but we've actually fared pretty well compared to other countries. India was hit by 26% across the board tariffs. China will be forking out 34%. And of course, the EU around 20%. Let's talk about the impact that these tariffs are likely to have on industry. And there's the obvious one to turn to first is, of course, the shipping industry. And actually, freight has actually got cheaper this year. We're going to find out exactly how much by, but it remains more than 50% higher than pre-pandemic levels. And that was before we had this looming trade war. So what is likely to be the impact on shipping and supply chains? Let's start with the short and the medium term. Well, joining us now is Stefania Sierra. She's the general manager of DASA International Movers, and she's joined us in the studio this morning. Welcome, Stefania. Lovely to have you with us. Now, this sort of looming trade war was closely anticipated. You know, the market to a certain extent had priced it in even. Have you anticipated it in your sector?
We have, and as I think we mentioned before when we met on the agenda, that we were all the shipping line were eager to ship as much as possible out of China before the tariff were to come in. So we were facing a shortage of containers in this part of the world because they were all mobilized in China. So with this new tariff, maybe in the next 2-3 months, the situation might balance back again, where we will find more empty containers available for us. But the situation is much more complex. It's not just Trump tariff. The whole world is facing port congestions. There's about 10% of the current fleet stuck in port congestions. When
you say port congestion, do you mean quite literally the boats or the ships are queuing outside the ports? Yes. They can't get in.
Yes, or they can get in, or they cannot get the container offloaded, delivered and reloaded. It's been there for the last few years.
So we see it in our ports, we see it in ports all around the world.
Yes, so some liner might decide to skip a port, not to call that port on the route, because there's no point just queuing for days and weeks.
So what's causing this port congestion?
All sort of. In the UK, for a long time, there was a lack of containers drivers.
Wow, so it literally can come down to the drivers. How about the situation in the Red Sea? Is that still impacting freight?
It's still impacting, and I think this is what is more affecting our part of the world.
Okay.
Even if the freight might come down a bit, and it has come down a bit in the last 3 months, still the having to go through Cape of Good Hope and not to be able to cut through the Red Sea is having an impact on the timing and on the forecast on how long is it going to take to send from port to port. If this Red Sea situation was to be clear today, then in the next couple of months we would be going back to very, very normal and very comfortable situation. But at the moment, that is very much still impacting.
Okay, so as somebody in the shipping industry, when you hear stories of a looming trade war, and that's unquestionably what it looks like we're going to get. I mean, we spoke to an expert on the program earlier today that suggested that for some exports from China into the States, we're looking at 79% once you've added them all up. Does that just mean less boats going from China to America?
Possibly some less boats, but America will still have to import.
Okay.
So probably they will just increase the prices for the consumer at their hand, but they will still have to import the goods. So America is not, at the moment, is not self-sufficient. It's not self-sufficient for, even if they start producing now, it's not going to be self-sufficient for years probably, right? So
realistically, they're still going to want their electronics and their other Chinese goods. They're just going to be...
What might also affect our industry now is that the Trump administration has announced, I think it was 26th of March, that they want to stop Chinese-built boat to call U.S. ports. And that is about 20% of the fleet currently on sea. Some liners like Costco, almost all their boats are Chinese built. So they will lose that route, and they will give a chance to other shipping line to participate in that lane.
So hang on a second. Even if the boat is owned by somebody else, if it was made in China,
Yes.
the Americans don't want it to...
That was the announcement.
That was the announcement?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, that type of thing is just extraordinary. Because you can't build one of these freight ships at any speed at all. People are going to have to carry on using the current stock.
I think they will just reroute what they have, but obviously they will have a disruption for a few months. They will have a disruption on the lane because the boat won't be able to dock. The vessel won't be able to dock where it was supposed to dock, and it has to be rerouted, or containers have to be transshipped.
Okay, so the mind boggles from the sort of logistical challenge that you guys are facing. I've got about 30 seconds left with you. Is this good for business? Is uncertainty for you guys good for business, or does it just end up costing you more money?
It'll end up causing more stress to everyone because we cannot forecast, and especially in our sector where we deal mainly with personal effects, it's very important to give people a bit of certainty when are you going to receive your kids' toys and school books, and that is causing a lot of headaches. I'm not sure that prices will increase much, but uncertainty will increase. And that is a bit more sad because when we deal with people, we try to be more empathetic about it. Goods are goods, but when your personal effects are your personal effect, it'll impact on your family.
Stefania Sierra, General Manager of DASA International Movers. You have, of course, a commercial perspective, but also a personal perspective on the freight industry.
Dubai Eye 103.8.
Join the conversation.